This is Ed Driscoll for PJmedia.com, and we're recording this interview on location at the campus, recording studio, and Raiders of the Lost Ark-sized warehouse of Sweetwater.com in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Sweetwater is an internet-based music dealer which sells everything from guitars and synthesizers to microphones to multi-track recording PCs and all points in between. We're talking today with Mitch Gallagher of Sweetwater.com. And Mitch, thanks for stopping by today.
My pleasure, Ed. Thanks for asking me to sit down with you.
Mitch, could you talk a bit about your background in music and music journalism?
I come from a small town in North Dakota, and my mom had me in voice choir when I was in grade school. I played trombone in junior high, and I was bit by the rock and roll bug, again, the guitar bug, when I was about 15. And I started playing guitar, eventually went on the road with bands and went back to college. I got a degree in music. While I was doing that, I was teaching guitar lessons. I was getting into recording. I was kind of the guy in the band who was always into technology, and I ended up going to graduate school, studying electronic music and composition, recording, and those things. And I actually came to work here at Sweetwater in 1992 after grad school as the 5th sales engineer. And we call our sales people here sales engineers because they tend to have a recording background, and it's a very technical kind of a thing. And so I was a 5th sales engineer in 1992 and moved from being into sales into doing more writing for catalogs. I was working on the first website, did the first catalog. I founded InSync, which is our daily internet news blog. That dates back to like 1996. And started writing for some of the other publications that Sweetwater does. And from there, was hired to be the technical editor and later senior technical editor at Keyboard Magazine. And Keyboard Magazine was owned by the same company that owned EQ Magazine, which was a recording studio magazine. And I moved to New York and became the editor-in-chief of EQ Magazine and was there until 2005. The magazine industry changed pretty dramatically. As you know, it's a different world than it once was in the print media world. And wanted to make a change, and I had stayed on good terms with Sweetwater. I left on good terms, and Chuck Surak had remained a friend through all those years. And he suggested I come back here. So I came back here basically in the capacity of editorial director, which means basically that I oversee content. And that's expanded greatly since 2005. At that point, there was a lot of print content still. But the internet has become so huge and videos have become so huge. That's actually a big part of my position here now at Sweetwater.
We're recording this interview just off the lobby of the main building, and in the corner is a Volkswagen bus from about 1966.
Right.
With a 4-track recorder in the back, which is how Chuck Surak, who founded Sweetwater, got started. Could you talk a bit about the significance of the van in launching what we're seeing here today?
Sweetwater is still family-owned. Chuck Surak is the CEO and president, is the founder. And it actually started about 36 years ago as a 4-track recording studio. He had a 4-track recorder, which at that time was a reel-to-reel tape recorder. He would load that into his VW bus, and he would go on location. So he would come to your school and record the 5th grade recital. And then he would go to the Moose Lodge and record the band playing there. And he would do these different location recordings, take them back to his mobile home, bring the 4-track recorder in there and mix them down and create records. You know, at that time they were tapes and records. That grew into a commercial studio that served, jingles for different companies and album projects for musicians and things. And so the studio continued to grow. Chuck always found that as he was seeking out gear, trying to find the right gear for what he was doing, he was having difficulty finding people with the expertise to really help him. He wasn't getting the service he expected. He wasn't getting the after-sales support that he expected. And so he began to look for ways that he could do that himself. And one of those was he created software for a keyboard called the K250. The K250 was one of the early sampling keyboards. Kurzweil, exactly, right. And he figured out how to reverse engineer that and create his own sounds for it. And so he created a network of people who traded those, and later he sold those sounds. And it was people like Stevie Wonder and Kenny Rogers and huge artists were working with him on those sounds, purchasing those sounds from him. And they began to ask, if I'm buying these sounds from you, why can't I buy my Kurzweil from you? Why can't I buy parts for it, upgrades for it, and things? And so he became a dealer for Kurzweil. And it just expanded from there. If I can buy my Kurzweil from you, why can't I buy my software from you? Why can't I buy this from you? And so most of the growth that we've had here at Sweetwater has been based on customers wanting things from us, and the avenues kind of opened up there for Sweetwater to grow. He added a salesperson to help him out. He added a support staff. He added repair staff, and it's grown now to where in this building we have about 900 employees.
And just how big is this facility?
Boy, I think it's 130,000, 140,000 square feet. It's
Okay.
huge, and we're on a large campus here that provides us with a lot of room for expansion as well, because we're growing at a tremendous rate.
Yeah, there's recording studios, a cafeteria, the giant warehouse, and also a walk-in retail store you recently added.
Very large retail store that we just opened about 2 months ago. And we also have a performance theater here. We have conference rooms. We make those available to the public. The performance theater is available to nonprofit organizations here for their events and things. And then we also use that a lot for, actually all the time, for training for our staff here and those types of things, events for the public, all kinds of stuff.
But the vast majority of sales are coming from the website. Is that correct?
We have three kind of avenues for sales here. First of all is our local retail store, which is quite a large presence here in the whole region and has become kind of a destination for musicians from all over the world. Will come here, and we hear from people who took their vacation to come to the retail store and check things out. And then we have our sales engineers, and there are a couple hundred of sales engineers on the phones, and they take a very proactive approach to sales. They develop relationships with their customers, and so the majority of our sales are still coming from the sales engineer and their direct contact with customers in that approach. But the web sales through Sweetwater.com have grown dramatically. It has been a huge thing, and it is a significant percentage of what we do here.
Can you describe who is the typical customer?
It is that's a tough question because it's so broad. It's everyone from someone who's just buying their first guitar or their first drum set or bass or keyboard. We have a music academy here with something like 500 students a week that come in and take lessons, and so absolute beginners, all the way to the biggest rock stars and film studios and organizations, colleges, universities, churches. So there is no stereotypical Sweetwater customer. Sure. Many of them are musicians, but a lot of recording engineers and a lot of professional companies as well.
And you also have demos and boot camps with the pros here.
We sure do. Yeah, we have workshops, we have master classes, we have clinics that go on. In fact, as we're speaking, Kenny Aronoff is here, who's a drummer from John Mellencamp and John Fogerty and many, many, many other bands.
Sure.
And tremendous number of records. And I still call them records. He's doing a clinic tonight. He did a master class the other night. He's been working in our studios. So yeah, those artists are here all the time.
So for somebody who wants to get started, say they already play guitar, they play keyboard, and they want to get started recording drum music. I started on a Fostex, I think it was the Fostex 250, 4-track cassette recorder around 1983. How would you recommend that they get started today?
It's quite easy to get into it at this point because everyone has a computer, everyone has an iPad or a tablet or whatever. You can, in fact, just buy a USB microphone and plug it into your computer and you can record, or a little handheld recorder. There's free software for the iPad. It's very easy to get started doing recording. To step up from there, there's software that's called DAW software. It's very simple software that allows you to record, say, a track of guitar and then lay a vocal track on top of that and mix it down and add echo to it and things to make it sound professional. That software running on a Mac or a PC, combined with a microphone you can plug into your computer or a simple interface that you can plug into your computer, a set of headphones or a set of speakers, and you really can start making some very good sounding recordings, and then you can grow your studio from there.
Without a huge initial cost.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's gotten very affordable. I started about the same time you did, and at that time it was an investment even to get that basic tape recorder that would do it.
These days, there's a lot of ways to get your music heard on the internet, but it seems like it's easy for it to be kind of lost in the void because the internet is so big.
Right.
How can you get your music to have any kind of impact on the internet if that's your goal?
Boy, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? There's so much out there that standing out is really a challenge. I try to watch that a bit. The social media aspect of it has become so huge, connecting with fans and developing a fan base and making sure that people who like what you hear, you're staying in communication with them, getting your songs to them, because word of mouth seems to be the huge thing right now. The days of the huge marketing blitz and the the $1 million ad budgets and things are, for most of us, not available. Yet we have access to such a broad reach, and so it really is a matter of differentiating yourself with social media, with a presence on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all those kinds of things are the way that we're seeing musicians reaching out and really making contact, as well as developing a grassroots fan base locally and in their region.
Now, you have a couple of lengthy videos on YouTube of your home studio, and which was designed with input from someone who I'm currently working with, a fellow named Russ Berger.
Russ is awesome.
And now we talked a little bit about just the basics of getting started recording. For somebody who wants to take the next step up and put together his first home studio, could you talk a bit about how to get started with that?
Sure. The the defining factor in making something that's going to be a really professionally functioning and sounding studio is the room itself. So having that acoustic treatment in the room, isolating it from outside sounds, whether it's trucks going by or the dishwasher in the next room or whatever it might be, is a big aspect of that. Treating the acoustics in the room so it's very neutral, and then choosing the gear that allows you to accomplish what you want. And there are so many different avenues to go there. If you're making beats for R&B or something, it's one way. If you're an acoustic guitarist or a singer-songwriter, it's a different. If you're a band, it's a different kind of thing. So there are a lot of different avenues to go. So what I recommend is that, first of all, you have a goal in mind. And then you can work work backward toward the gear that will get you to that goal. And without throwing an ad out there, our Sweetwater sales engineers, that's what they do. They work on a consultative basis to really work with musicians and engineers to develop the system that's going to provide them with the results that they want.
Goal in mind being recording yourself and using maybe a drum machine or drum loops versus recording your whole
Right.
band.
Your goal may be to make film scores, and in that case, you'd need a certain set of gear and a certain set of software. But if your goal is to record your punk band, you need a totally different setup. And if your goal is to record your songs with your acoustic guitar and you singing, that's a different setup again. So that there really is no one answer. It really does depend on the context.
Now, going from the 4-track in the 80s, I'm just astounded at the technology available to someone with, say, a Sweetwater Creation Station PC, a Cakewalk Sonar, Melodyne. I remember learning Melodyne last year and was floored by its capabilities to radically transform a vocal or an instrument solo, a drum track. And a program like Isotope RX can clean up all sorts of recording imperfections. What's your take on the state of recording software, and where do you see it going in the future?
Wow, that's a big question. Recording software is so capable at this point. I mean, you can do, in one piece of software running in your computer, you have basically what was an entire professional multi-million-dollar recording facility back in the 70s or 80s is right there in your laptop. So it's astounding what you can accomplish. They're so capable as far as fixing things afterward and providing you with options for processing things. You mentioned RX, which is software that removes noise, and it can take out rumble and hum and clicks and coughs during a concert. I mean, it can go right in during a performance and take a cough out of a violin note, and you never know it was there.
Exactly.
You know, it's astounding what you can do with that, and they just keep working further and further into that world and allow you to perfect what you're doing there. And the other thing that we're seeing are they're using a technology called modeling to recreate the classic items, whether it's a classic microphone or a classic microphone preamp or a classic guitar amplifier. You can get a software version of those now, and there's so much effort and so much work being put into providing you with the whole system right in your computer that you can go from start to finish. If you have a guitar and you have a set of headphones and you have that software, you can virtually emulate almost any piece of gear and perfect the performance and get it exactly the way that you want it. It truly is astounding.
Well, let's talk a little about the guitar modeling, because on the internet, I flip back and forth between the Les Paul forum, where I've been a member since 2002, and the Roland V Guitar forum. And the guys at the Les Paul forum are very much purists. They have their 1950s era Les Pauls or the reissues of the 50s Les Pauls. They're plugged into 1960s era amp technology. The technology available that's a guitarist now between the Roland V Guitar series, the new unit that you recently did a demo on that doesn't require a special pickup, is just astounding. But ever since the first synth guitars in the late 70s and 80s, so many guitarists are reluctant to make that leap into technology that wasn't used by, say, Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page in 1969.
Right.
Do you have any advice for them?
It is so much easier now than it once was. At one point, actually up until very recently, you basically had to modify your guitar or buy a special guitar to drive an interface that would then connect to a synthesizer that you could then record. And there were issues with when you played a low note, there was a delay when you'd pick versus a high note would speak faster. And so there were all these things you had to compensate for. And so you had to give up your guitar technique to do that. And a lot of players found that unacceptable. With today's technology, the converters are so fast, and the new product you mentioned is the SY300 from Boss, which is Roland, which is amazing. It actually processes the signal from the string and turns it into all these other wonderful sounds, and you don't have to change your technique at all.
And you don't have to bolt on an extra pickup.
You don't have to modify your guitar. You don't have to change anything about it. So it's gotten so much easier. There are now wireless converters that will allow you to play your guitar and have it show up directly inside your computer. You can control software synthesizers. You can control hardware synthesizers. So if you've been hesitant or reluctant to get into guitar synthesis, I recommend you take another look at it and try to let go of some of those biases that we've all had for many, many years, because the technology has gotten so advanced with that.
And Mitch, after all this on home recording, my last question is on the pop recording industry as a whole. We've talked about all this astounding technology, and we both deal with it every day in our home studios. How do you explain the disparity between how excellent today's hardware and software is, stuff that's available and affordable by just about anybody, and how mediocre so much commercial music sounds these days?
Once again, that's a huge question. The ingredient that the software and the hardware and the computers and all this technology can't provide is talent. You still have to have musical talent. You still have to be able to play the guitar. You have to have an idea of what drum rhythm you want to have. You have to be able to sing. And yes, you can make yourself in tune if you can't sing in tune, but you still have to have a quality voice. And there's still talent that's required there. And so there's that aspect that the technology will never give you. However, if you have even a small amount of talent, the technology will allow you to take that to its furthest extent and really do incredible things with it. Part of what you're talking about, though, is that what you hear on the radio is the tiny tip of the iceberg that's being promoted by a huge company. Mm-hmm. And the huge companies are interested in reaching toward the most common denominator. And so pop music has always had that aspect to it. There's been a certain part of pop music that's the role it fills, is that radio. And that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. Millions and millions of people love it. I think it's great. I love a lot of the pop songs, a lot of the pop music. But there are worlds and worlds and worlds of other music that are out there. And now with the internet, you have access to that. A lot of it's free. Mm-hmm. And you can find it with just a little bit of searching. And so I think to me anyway, the landscape of music has changed dramatically, and I love it, because you have access to so much stuff, and there's a possibility for someone with talent, small amount of talent, large amount of talent, to be able to create music on their own terms, put it out there on their own terms, and then I can find it and be entertained and touched by it. And I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And for somebody who wants to start creating music on their own terms, go to sweetwater.com and just start exploring?
We are happy to help out. Our sales engineers will answer questions. Sweetwater.com. There's all kinds of how-to. There's all kinds of tutorials, buying guides, things that will help you get started, choose the right gear. And
you have a ton of clips on YouTube as well.
We do about 900 videos. We'll do about 900 videos this year. And wow. So there are tons and tons and tons of videos up there, product reviews, demonstrations, interviews with artists that are very educational. We have how-to videos, again, buying guide types things. And so, yeah, there's lots and lots and lots of material there.
All right. This is Ed Driscoll coming from the Sweetwater.com campus in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we've been talking with Mitch Gallagher. You can catch Mitch in the many product demo videos he records for Sweetwater's YouTube channel, as well as his articles on the Sweetwater website. And Mitch, thanks for stopping by pjmedia.com today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.